Thank you. We thought the room was small enough, so we'll try to not talk too loud, so we go from one extreme to the other. But recently I met Rajeev at the IC3 Institute at Shiv Nadar University, and then Zia and I, we only really met, even though she's on my campus, probably 3 years ago, and had a brief encounter, and I said, hey, do you want to go to India to this conference? And she says, yes. And literally I was like, are you kidding? Are you serious? And so last year she came to IC3, and so the relationships that we build are just phenomenal. And throughout the duration of the presidential forums and the conference, this whole theme of the liberal arts kept coming up. And so no matter who you were talking with, and even myself being at a large research university, once in a while you reflect on, okay, what's the liberal arts versus a liberal arts degree versus a liberal arts college? And often those terms are used they're exchanged. And so we really thought it would be helpful to come together as a team and share some of the perspectives of how we see it, kind of the experience from our campuses. And I'll kind of go through some of the learning outcomes because this is related, to make sure that everybody leaves here with an idea of what those differences are, what the university experience is like for students, the value of that experience, as well as what high schools can do to really best prepare the students. But before we get started more, can we get a show of hands for who's here representing? We see the red, but how about the high schools from India? Is that mainly everybody here? Okay, excellent. And then universities from anywhere. Okay, we figured it might be about half and half, but more of the high schools. Okay, and Nepal, thank you. So outside of India, thank you very much. And anybody outside of Nepal or India? Okay, excellent, wonderful. Thank you very much. Well, and this will be fun to compare and contrast. So all of us are here as students and sharing with you, and certainly some of you could also be up here. So at the end, we want to try to allow for at least maybe 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. But if you have a question in the middle of something, don't hesitate. And the four of us will do our best to try to make sure that we wrap up in a very timely fashion. So sit back, buckle your seatbelts if you're in the front seat, right? Because you don't do it in the back seat here. But absolutely, yes. That's my understanding for all of the sessions. And if you want it sooner, you can certainly give me your card and we can email. We have it in a PowerPoint as well as a PDF version. So if you want it sooner rather than later, I would be happy to send it to you. So hopefully this journey, and we've had many conversations to make certain that we really hit the key topics as we go through. So are you ready? So before we even get into explaining, we're curious why you chose this session, to make sure we hit on some of the key points. Excellent. Years previously at Eastern Washington University, when you talk with people to explain it, you still see the big question mark over their heads going, okay, I didn't do that very well. So I'll start with, and I might stand up now so that I can kind of see this with you. So at the University of California, Santa Cruz, the key that I want to point out, and we'll see which one is that is not good. That's the power button. Okay, maybe we don't have a pointer. What's that? Oh, very little. Can you even see that? Yeah, let's not even worry about that. Let me get a pencil here. But what I want to draw your attention to is not only the foundation, but also the items on the outside of the triangle. And one of the things we have that's really distinctive to the liberal arts is the general education. You might hear it as general education or core curriculum. And those are the educational components, the curriculum there. On the bottom there, you see student support services, our residential colleges, the advising, financial, the resource centers, academic advising. That's really a key foundation because we don't have students coming in and expecting them to know how to navigate this whole thing. And this tries to make it nice and neat, and I don't know that it is nice and neat because there are so many choices. So I think that first level of foundation is the support services. But in your general education, we have a variety of broad areas regardless of major, and that's really critical. All of our students are going to have courses in the math. They're going to have courses in scientific reasoning, in the cross-cultural analysis, in the arts. So if you're an engineering student, Rajeev, you would have had the variety of courses here. If I'm an art student, I'm required to take the math and the sciences. And part of this, and we've had a theme throughout the conference, is students do not have to come in knowing exactly what they want to do. They have proposed majors. And so students, I call this a little bit of a journey and an exploration to really find your passion. And either you find you really like it or maybe you find you don't like it. And that's equally as important. And then the major is the next level. Some of your major courses can also be found in this area. So if you are in the sciences, of course you might take a biology or a chemistry. Or if you're a literature, of course you're going to take some courses in the writing that may count in both areas. And then you might have a minor where you might say, maybe I am in the arts, but I want a minor in business. You know, the entrepreneurship for artists is really important in today's age. And then we have some elective credits and some disciplinary communication. So your communication course, if you're computer science versus the arts, might be a very different kind of capstone. But we also have the experiences that I would call professional development, you know, the jobs, the internships, maybe the study abroad, leadership and development. Those might be clubs, those might be organizations. Because I never, and I tell students and parents this, I never want anybody to come to our campus and only focus on the curriculum, because all of the other skills that we've heard about throughout the conference and elsewhere, really you refine those other skills that will best prepare students to go on to graduate school or to go on into their careers. So that's really what I would call the framework of the undergraduate experience in Santa Cruz. And Rajeev, you're going to cover the framework for Shiv Nadar.
Yeah, so when we started this university, we were very clear that we wanted liberal arts view in all the courses that we offer. So, and because we sincerely believe that the purpose of education is not just dissemination of information and facts, it's about training of mind. So whatever you do, that's the core fact. And that's why when we started with this view that we will have a comprehensive, multidisciplinary and research-focused university, which will have different schools. So the couple of schools that we started with, we have School of Engineering and School of Humanities and Social Sciences, School of Sciences, Natural Sciences, and then Business School. And a couple of other schools are about to come by. Now, you can see the smaller circles, and we said that what defines is the interdisciplinarity between the schools. So we have what we call as core curriculum, CCC. It's something that everybody has to do. Every undergraduate student of Shiv Nadar University would have done that course, irrespective of the major that he would have joined. Then you have electives, which is open to everybody from the university. These are my major courses, but open to others as electives. And then I have my own major, through which they can also do a major minor combinations. And each course has these pillars, which we call as WELS, REAL, and IC. WEL stands for Values, Ethics, Leadership, and Service. REAL is Research, Experiential, and Applied Learning. And IC is International Context. Now, these pillars are something like, three-legged problem of a stool, although these stools have 4 legs. But the 3 legs are so essential for the stool to stand up. You cannot, so just take out one and the stool will fall down. That's the essential definition that we give it. All courses will have to have this character, because you're preparing students to solve a whole problem. Now, it's not that they're going to solve each part of it, but they need to at least understand and communicate to the other part solvers. So that's why this foundation is so important. So multidisciplinary is something, and I was talking to Michelle, that Government of India has also endorsed our thinking. So there's a new education policy which has come up, and that new education policy in India is under discussion right now. It's going to come up soon in finality, and it's saying that all universities in India needs to be comprehensive and needs to offer courses from a variety of schools and not just an IIT or a National Law School or an AIMS. So it should offer a variety of courses so that people can actually take courses from all such disciplines. So this is something which I wanted to bring in, and we'll go and see a few other things as we move. Yeah.
With yours, Rajeev, is the core prescribed, or do they get a variety of courses in the core? Because I know in Santa Cruz, you might get in the cross-cultural communication, you might have 30 courses to choose from. And so that flexibility, I think, can be fabulous, but I think it can be overwhelming, especially, again, for the high school student that might be used to a pretty prescribed curriculum. So is yours broad in the core, or is it flexible?
So when we come to this question, that the vast uncertainty of future, and when we were in the presidential forum, we were looking at jobs of 2040, and some of the jobs which came out was drone traffic controller and robot mediator, right? So the point is, what are you teaching today may not be relevant at all after, say, 4 or 5 years. And the rate of change has accelerated beyond what we can imagine. with the advent of AI and ML, all fields are going to change. And there is no field which is going to be untouched. And I know the genesis of machine learning and artificial intelligence is psychology. How many of you know? Right. That's why the multidisciplinary form of education is so important. And the jobs of the future, we do not know. So when we have so much of uncertainty in terms of what's in store, we definitely need to look at a different way of training our kids. And that's why, I mean, I'll bring some other perspective, and maybe we can talk about.
So thank you. So this is a graphic of our university's core areas, priority academic areas that they've developed over the last few years, trying to think really broadly about the rapidly shifting terrain, both of the academic world and of the world of careers and human action, right? So rather than saying, well, we're going to be a school that specializes in math or computational skills or social justice, right, social sciences, right? They developed these priority areas based on Earth futures. That includes environmentalism, includes questions of economics and global warming, how global warming will impact economics, justice in a changing world, the distribution of resources, how that becomes available. We need a lot of different tools to understand that, not only sociological tools, but tools of computer science to do calculations, to understand how things might shift, how populations might move, how a distribution of resources can be better allocated. And then digital interventions, which, as Rajeev has pointed out, is going to affect every single area that we have, that we are active in. So this is one way that our campus has tried to think in a highly interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary way about the uncertainty and the rapidly changing world that we live in today. So if we can go to the next one. So as an example, so I am involved in training students, undergraduates in research, primarily in genomics and bioengineering, bioinformatics. This is one example of how our students need to have a multidisciplinary background in order to really thrive in this field. So as a bioinformatician, our students need to have competence in computer science, statistics, and biology, and then the subsets of that, right? Data science, computational biology, and biostatistics. And you can start seeing how the disciplinary boundaries merge and collapse and form new disciplines, right? And that gives our students flexibility. Also, our students are all required to participate in classes that help them think through the ethical problems of science, right? And this is becoming increasingly a requirement for our students that we have a lot of federal funding for scholarships to train our students in these fields, and the federal agencies are now requiring an ethics of scientific practice for all of our students. So they need to be able to think like philosophers, basically, right? They need to be able to understand the implications of the capacities that they are developing, right, to actually change the world and change the way we do things. So, that's where, again, a liberal arts background becomes really vital, that our students aren't only trained in computational skills, or not only trained how to work in a wet lab or to extract genomic information, right, and do cross comparisons, but to also think about the potential harm as well as the benefit that we can do with science, right, once we achieve a certain level of capacity.
We were talking and wanted to give some really concrete examples of what, like in practice, what does the liberal arts degree look like, and that flexibility. And I know at the presidential forum, people were really concerned. Do any of you have 16-year-olds in your schools that don't know what they want to be when they grow up? Yes, and that's pretty typical, right? People get so worried, and again, some people, it's a rare exception that somebody knows exactly what they want to do. And so Catherine Sullivan was one of those students in the late 60s when she joined our campus. And guess what her proposed major was when she started? And you can tell, like, the answer's there. So she started as the French literature student. She was really adamant that this is what she wanted to do. And we talked about that foundation. So her academic advisor was on her saying, Catherine, you need to take the sciences. You can't just focus on French literature. And so she kept putting it off and putting it off. And then finally she took her first science class, which was an earth sciences class with one of our probably most world-renowned faculty members, Gary Griggs. And guess what happened when she was in that earth sciences class? She fell in love with it. So then she took another class, which ultimately led to a degree in the earth sciences. And then, as you can see, she went on to become the first American woman to walk in space, later went on to lead the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration worldwide with a budget of over $4 billion. And so imagine if she came to campus and was required and couldn't change from French literature, what a loss that would have been for humanity to some degree. So again, that flexibility to go through that journey because you don't know exactly where it may lead.
Yeah, so to add to that, that's why when we defined our curriculum, we said that we will have the multidisciplinary learning approach, and I was talking about the CCC, couple of the courses, couple of the broad ideas or broad areas which we touch upon in our CCCs is Indian history and society, world history and society, culture and communication, physical and biological systems, cognition, intelligence, the environment, and the empirical reasoning and analysis. And you can understand that whether you're a student of sociology or a student of history or a student of computer science, everybody has to go into that class and study with a peer group which is so different and diverse. So you don't not only learn the subject, but you also learn while you are doing projects with students from other majors. It gives you so much of learning and appreciation of other majors. So that's one. And then, as I said, we also have what we call as major and minor. Now, this satiates both your a job requirement and maybe your inner requirement. So I am a student who, you saw the performances yesterday. So there is a student who want to do dance, and the parents are saying engineering. We give you both options. Okay, now you have to choose which one is going to be major and which one is going to be minor, depending on your parent and your power equation. But you have the option of doing both. Right. At the same time, we also instituted what we call as change of major policy, and we said that just in case after a year or two the student feels that I'm not cut out for this major, we allow for change of major. And I have a student who's moved from computer science to sociology, and he was in the dean's list of sociology. And he was not doing well in computer science. So that's the kind of things that we have allowed to make sure that our students who are so creative and who have different ambitions are able to fulfill all those requirements through what we offer. And we call this as a T-shaped education. You also need certain depth of knowledge. So you have your core and you have your major. And major course has enough courses to give you that depth. And we have the CCC and the UWs to actually give you the breadth of information. So that's very important that you have both the depth and the breadth. Yeah, that's called as T-shaped. Yeah. So we have so many examples of students who've actually benefited from this kind of curriculum. So yesterday, we were listening to some of the talks, and somebody was saying that 19th century curriculum taught by 20th century faculty and taught to 21st century students. We have actually very, very consciously taken care of that part. And this is one of the example of our students who just moved out, passed out, and joined Cornell. And one of the important things that I wanted to bring out here is what's the impact of the community of student activities inside the campus. He was the president of Student Council. And yet, he was able to deliver in terms of the academic performance, and that's because of the mentorship, that's because of the advising that happens inside the campus. So we have this peer mentorship as well as the faculty mentorship, and that helps. And look at the achievement of this. Yeah, we can go to the next one. There's another example. This is a student of our first batch, class of 2015. We started in the year 2011, and he was a student of School of Engineering, but because of the training and his interest of directing movies, he moved out and joined this. And he has a lot of technical knowledge in terms of handling of equipments, because we also have these classes, these lectures on movie making. There's a department which offers communication courses. So that helped, right? So, yeah?
Well, and Raja, I think of you, and I do have some connections with the admissions office. If you want to go back and major in art, it's never too late. I can hook you up. Oh, that's too funny. Oh, there you go. See, we're all here to help Raja. This was all about Raja today. Well, I think these examples are something we wanted to share. And even one of our new students who I will be seeing tomorrow, actually visiting with his school, he's from Mumbai and his name is Saksham. And he's coming in and actually double majoring in film and astrophysics. And so, again, sometimes it's a major and a minor. And other times, if students are really ready and maybe they also want to attend in the summer, they can actually double major. And I think it's fascinating. And he's a student I'm going to definitely watch over the course of his career because he's just outstanding, and to see like where his path actually takes him. So another fun story is, I'm sure you all know of YouTube and Google. Well, Susan Wojcicki is one of our alumni. She has a Master of Science in Economics. And I go around California. I'm in New York sometimes, certainly in India. And I gave you all the answers here. But when I ask people, as the head of YouTube, the CEO of YouTube, and guess where Google was founded? Do you all know the story of where Google was founded? Her garage. It was in her garage. And when I asked people, guess what her undergraduate degree was in? There is not one person in China, in New York, in Santa Clara, in LA that can even come close to guessing that her undergraduate degree from Harvard is in English. So the next time, I always tell students, and maybe you, if you're parents, because I know parents seem to give a lot of pressure telling students what they need to major in. So if they say, what is my kid going to do with a major in English? You could say they might go on to lead a high-tech company. And so I think it's fascinating that we have sometimes these preconceived notions about even what the liberal arts means, what the major means. And Rupa, I don't know if you can share a little bit, because you were talking this morning about the liberal arts college we have. We have the liberal arts, which is broad, and then the liberal arts degrees, which is what we've been talking about. So even though you major in engineering from the University of California, it is a liberal arts degree. Engineering is not the liberal arts, but do you want to share a little bit more depth of that background that you had shared previously this morning?
Good morning, everyone. You know, what is it that you think of when you think of liberal arts? What is it that you think of? Let me begin with you today. Multidiversity, okay. Multidisciplinary, okay. Choices, all right. Thank you for that. I'll hold on to that word liberation and we'll go forward little later. Any other answers? When you think of liberal arts, what are the subjects which fall under that in your mind today? Yes, Raja?
I don't think of subjects, I think of complete freedom. That's what I think about when I think about liberal arts.
Liberation, freedom. Okay, I think I should actually tell you what it meant when it started. Liberal.
It's almost like choosing your own topping of the pizza.
Oh, thank you. I love that one. That's so millennial, isn't it? Right. So actually, liberal means free. So in the Greek context, where it started from, what was actually destined to be was to make you a free and complete person. You had to learn 7 subjects. And it's called the trivium and the quadrivium. Okay, sorry, these are difficult words, but I just want to tell you. So in the trivium, grammar, rhetorics, because what do you use rhetorics for? What do you use rhetorics? Where do you use rhetorics? Yeah, for communication, right? So to write or to, because there was a lot of infight going on, you can just go back to like BC and think of where this word came from. And then they had the other thing, which was logic. So these were the trivium. The quadrivium, the 4, was geometry, arithmetic, all right? Astronomy, Google search, Uncle Google. If you search him, you will find it means the humanities. Am I right? Look at from where it has come. Where, in fact, school. Do you know what school means? It doesn't mean what it is today. Scholar again means liberation. It is fun learning, liberated learning, but look what we have done to it. So I love what you are saying now, because how it started was so beautiful, and look what we did to it. And look what you've done. So we need to change our mindset first and foremost to go back to that tri and quadrivium and trivium, to be able to teach the children again. So it was a complete circle of your personality development. Am I right? If you think about it, it's how you, 21st century skills, did I hear that? Communication, critical thinking, creativity. If you look at all 7, it comes down to those 3. Are we again reinventing the wheel because we've gone wrong? Question for you. Okay? So that's where, so we went wrong, and we are trying to come back to it again. So I'll just leave it at that and let you go forward and then bring up other points.
No, I think that's really key. And I think, at this point, hearing that background is amazing. And then I think we wanted to really, transition, because we jumped into our definition of the liberal arts, but then wanted to back up a little bit to think about what the intent was. And again, these 3 terms, the liberal arts, a liberal arts degree, and a liberal arts college, all of which means something slightly different. And then especially the 4th one is, what was the true meaning going back to the Greek time? So I think kind of wrapping your head around that evolution, and I think some parts of the world kept that going forward, others changed it, and now again there's a transition. And so to think about, way, way back, the intelligence and the foresight to understand the different types of skills that were needed. And I think all throughout the conference, we talk about today's really complex problems. And I loved hearing Dr. Barry Craig talking about kind of the mess, and I'm going to blame his generation. He's a little further ahead of me, not by much. But our problems in the world today are so incredibly complex, and we are going to have to approach those problems from different perspectives. And I know in the US for a long time, it was a very individualized, type of education. But now it's all about collaboration. It's all about teamwork. It's all about those different communication styles. And even on our campus in the 80s, I think cancer impacts every family, every society. And, our team was working hard to map the human genome, because they knew that if we could better understand the genome, we could get really personalized treatments and cures for cancer. And our biologist, was it Jim Kent? Jim Kent was working and trying to figure this out. And it was a computer scientist, David Hausler, that when they came together from very, very different perspectives, that they were able to map the human genome and put it up for free on the website, so that it wasn't just big pharma who had this that was really driven by money. And so now the impacts are massive across the world. And if it wasn't for that teamwork across the disciplines, they may still be working on it today. And so I think there's such examples of that interdisciplinary in the world where we are today. And so, Roop, I think you're going to take, how can schools, thinking of the high schools, and it may be from the college perspective as well, best prepare students? And I think that Rajeev and I have talked a lot about the what, a little bit about the how, because the style of teaching, I think, is also really important, which leads to the learning to learn and an empowered education experience. And I think you have some great examples from your school.
Thank you, Michelle. How many of you in the last 2 months read about philosophy going to become one of the subjects in the interdisciplinary learning of subjects in colleges? Did anybody read that article? Because it was big news in the field of education. So philosophy is going to become an integral part of any subject you learn. And when I read that, I felt so blessed. My graduation is from Calcutta University, and I had English with botany. Where did this come from? And philosophy. And in the last 1.5, 2 months, when I was reading about this, and I'm not sure which college they're talking about. If I'm not mistaken, it was from the Ivy League colleges that they were talking about, but I could be wrong. It could be Oxford or Cambridge also. But how do you think it's going to link up when we are talking about liberal arts? Yeah, I had taken, but forget me. I'm talking about philosophy, which they are announcing is going to be an integral part, because I, as a teacher and a learner, feel computer and philosophy are two things they should make it an integral part of any curriculum or any syllabi that is being given today. How many of you agree with that? Yes, ma'am, you wish to. You all agree with that? Yeah.
Talking of preparation for future, we're not talking of philosophy and computers as you showed. What is our future? What does justice mean? What is
Absolutely.
computers? Because they are integrated.
Absolutely.
Not using machine learning with philosophy. There's no logic there. Artificial intelligence is a question.
Absolutely.
The philosophy behind the human race itself need to be standing tall there.
Absolutely.
So it's a very logical thing. It has to be. It is a must.
So you all agree we pass a resolution today? So imagine we have a white paper and we pass a resolution, absolutely dynamic. Yes, Raja.
I'm very heartening to hear this, because the way I think about philosophy, it was very, very big early on when there was limited measurements available of the natural world. You had to theorize about things because you couldn't test those theories easily, and things remained in the domain of philosophy. They only moved over to science after we were able to make testable predictions and test them. With the explosion of data in every field today, philosophy is under big threat. Because you can see that as data becomes, as more and more data become available, the amount of ignorance is certainly not decreasing.
Absolutely. Thank you. We feel very heartened hearing that. I think Rajeev said that it is an underlying thing, what we are going to learn, the psychology, right? You mentioned that is an underlying thing, whether we do AI, augmented, any of those forms. So I felt it was very heartening to have philosophy, which they've already declared is soon going to be a part. Maybe, once these colleges do, everybody will start following. And the other thing I strongly believe is computer science. Because if we are looking at the future, we do not know the jobs. We keep hearing this, and we are tired of hearing, and we say skills, right, is what we're going to do. And we talk about experiential learning, but I talk about transversal learning. So what is transversal? Okay, tell me what's experiential learning in your mind? Please stop me when you wish to. What's experiential learning? Hands-on, okay. Learning by doing, hands-on learning. So you were saying?
That's what I would.
Okay. So yes. Real life experiences, okay. In industry, okay, we'll hold on to that. Thank you. Because, yes, you want.
Productive failure.
Wow. That's the one we need to teach our children. Yes. Absolutely. Productive failure. And how many times, I can see quite a few people whom I know, and they are from leading schools, we have to tell parents to leave their children alone. I know Pink Floyd said, teachers, leave your children alone, but we now need to say, parents, leave your children alone. And the problem is, they are bubble wrapping them. And they do not know, and Simon Sinek, I'm a follower of Simon Sinek, and I'm sure some of you are, and you will find him from time to time talking about how badly we are educating our children because of what's happening, the packaging that is being done by parents, that my child cannot fail. Why? Is it the child who's responsible? No, it's the parent who had his sense of failure and was not adequately prepared for it, that the problem has arisen. So let's talk about transversal. Experiential is one. Knowledge is, everybody imparts knowledge. Every school, every college, every institution. Then some have experiential learning, right? Now I talk about transversal. That is your employability skill. That's why I said hold on to your thought. And what we do is, one, in school itself, grade 6, 7, and 8 students revise the curriculum after the first semester. What are the employability skills we have given these children? Okay. Collaborative working, yes. research skills, critical thinking, creativity, because see, they are analyzing who's using the end product. Who's using the end product? The curriculum we make, the syllabi that we send to parents, who is supposed to be using? Parents? They are only the bystanders. We are, the teachers are the bystanders. The main person is the student. He or she has to give us the feedback how good it is for him or her. So one of the things we do in our school is after every half-yearly examination, they have to revise and say what changes they would like in that syllabus and curriculum that they have gone through.
Does that impact them or the next generation?
The next class, because the half-yearly is already over. So the next class which comes in, then the teachers revamp it accordingly.
So I think it teaches a lesson of greater good because
Absolutely.
it's putting in something
Thank
that
you.
doesn't benefit you as a student, it benefits the next generation.
Yes, it does. But there is definitely a growth pattern that we are looking at. Then the other thing is about summer jobs. We had this child, we do this for grades 9th, 10th, and 11th. 10th, some if parents force us, but otherwise it's 9th and 11th, which does the summer jobs. We have tied up with NGOs, with hospitals, with hospitality, with companies. It's a part of SL Group. So SL Group itself has a lot of, those who are from abroad, you may have seen ZTV. That's a part of SL Group, and Sun City is also a part of SL Group. So companies in SL Group. We've had a child who took biology in grade 11, went for the summer job in a hospital, and she fainted over there. Learned early that she wanted to do it, but she understood that she can't do it. So these are some best practices, and I'll now hand over to Michelle so that she could take it forward.
Well, and I have a question before we open it up to everybody. And again, I think about tying that to industry. And Harriet, I'm so glad that you brought that up. And we're thinking about the liberal arts. And I think it was last year after the presidential forum, we went over to Microsoft in Delhi, and we were hearing directly from Microsoft some of the skills that they really, really need in the workforce. And what do you think two of those key skills are for, and I think it goes for many, many different companies, but this came out directly at Microsoft. Critical analysis, what's that? Handling pressure, yes. We should all be teaching that too in higher ed as well. Resilience. Creativity and innovation. And I'm going to put my colleague Raja on the spot because he is so passionate about this. And so everybody in the audience, all the schools, I don't know, there were probably, I don't know, about 100 people there. So the first question they were like is, well, how do we teach creativity and innovation? And Raja, what was your response? Because you remember, he remembers. He was a little more than passionate, and this was so critical.
No, I said you have to stop beating it out of your children.
Yes, it was really, really clear. He's like, every child is born creative. Every child is born innovative. And what do? I think we mess them up first as parents because sit in your chair, be quiet, do it this way, do it that way. And how do you harness their energy to continue that? So after we mess them up a little bit, then we pass them off to the schools and then we're still trying to control things. Some parents, I would like to say. But that creativity and innovation is critical.
Yeah, I just want to bring in perspective that, I sincerely believe that school, university, and industry needs to come together and work out a solution because the output of the school is the input to the university, and the output of the university is the input to the industry. So the phenomenal fact is that everybody is actually going to solve some problem, right? And the starting is the school. The universities need to spend in the school education, and the industry need to spend in the higher education. That's the bottom line. So whatever you teach, it has to be relevant. That relevance will come from the industry. The school education is so important because that's the foundation. If we go wrong there, it's very, very difficult to correct at the stage of higher education. And then same thing with the higher education. If we go wrong there in terms of the skills that we're talking about, whether it is critical thinking or it's innovation or entrepreneurship, all those skills, if you don't give the child at that stage, then I think at the stage of industry, it will be a very, very difficult situation to deal with. So I think with that point, I would like to open this floor to questions. Feel free to ask questions, and we'll be all happy to answer. Yeah.
Thank you. So good morning, panelists. Thank you for your lovely talk. I want to understand from an Indian perspective, a student going through a liberal arts program, how do you imagine a student continuing in master's degree in India, where in India you still need, say for psychology, studying the last year, all the subjects in psychology. Mumbai University wouldn't give you admission otherwise, or any other university per se. How relevant do you think is it for Indian students staying back in India itself?
I'll take that question. So a couple of years back, there was this revision in the curriculum by UGC, and they called this as CBCS, which was Choice-Based Credit System. And they allowed that if a student has 24 credits from some other major, then he can do a master's in that branch. Okay, so for example, I'm a student. So, I'm saying the new education policy is going to take care of that. So there's a comprehensive, not now, yeah? So CBCS is a reality right now. The CBCS is a reality. Yes. So the problem is engineering, because it has a separate entrance examination and there are requirements. And so I do agree that it's a challenge at this point of time in India. But going forward, I think we are seeing some lights at the end of the tunnel, and there is definitely a thinking in that direction. I would urge you to look at the education policy and see it's still the draft, and they have asked for views of public. As of now, it is in that stage. Feel free to write to the MHRD and people who are involved so that they can actually take your views. So yes, I do agree, but there is a start in that direction, okay? And definitely in universities abroad, it is a possibility, right? Absolutely. So whenever there's a new thing which comes up, there are challenges which we face. I think this is the starting point of multidisciplinary education. The new universities which have come up, like Shiv, Nadar, Ashoka, Opajindal, all are going to change the way the government of India thinks. And I think it has already started. So a movement has already taken place, and I think you will see some fruits in the coming time.
Well, and I'm wondering, because I'm not certain, and I really appreciate you staying with the question, because let me see if I heard a little bit of something different, because even though you go to Shiv Nadar and let's say you major in engineering, it's still a liberal arts degree, but you have that T that Rajeev mentioned, and it does go deep into the engineering. So it's not a generalist type of degree. And similar to ours, if you're computer science or biology or marine biology, you've gone deep in that area. It's only a liberal arts degree because we are not going to allow you to just take the sciences. But it's that, and I like the example of the T, we're going broad and we're going deep. So a liberal arts degree is absolutely not a generalist degree. And so that may be the differentiation you might have heard, because there is so much confusion about the liberal arts. But whether it's math, Zia, all the examples in the School of Engineering, they're going deep in that topic, but they're still going to have, 5 to 6 other courses, like in the literature, cross-cultural communication, international perspectives. So a liberal arts degree is in no way, shape, or form a generalist degree, in my opinion. It's deep and it's broad, so it's both. Yeah, it's so interesting because there are liberal arts colleges, and the University of California is far from a liberal arts college, but the liberal arts degrees, exactly, yeah.
Universities that, let's say, as you mentioned about, let's say, marine biology. So if a child who's, joining for a liberal art undergrad and then wants to continue for masters in marine biology, then is it equivalent to you doing, let's say, a bachelor's in sciences with bio, or is there a difference in the way you look at the student who's coming to you for a master's degree?
That was my question, is where, if the students on our campus are coming from another area. So the graduate programs certainly have what we all call the prerequisite requirements. And so it doesn't even mean you have to have a degree in biology necessarily, but they're going to require the set of courses required, even medical school. Some people do their undergraduate even in, English, but they also take the sciences to prepare for medical school. So the answer that drives everybody nuts is it depends. And so it's important that, again, get a student often on our campus that wants to go on in biology at the graduate level, most often has an undergraduate degree, and it's a liberal arts degree, but the major is in biology. So again, they have to learn the critical thinking, they have to have the math, they have to have the writing, and then they're often very prepared to go on to graduate school where they're going to do a lot more research and dive in deeper, but they have to be able to write, they have to be able to do that type of research. Does that answer your question? Okay. Harriet?
Actually, my question is to you, Rajeev. Since you spoke about major and minors at Shiv Nadar, and my whole question is based on counseling parents in India. All right? I know liberal arts is a challenge when we have to speak to parents who are very rigid. They are only thinking about math, science, STEM, basically. So if you're going to talk about it, along with major and minor changes along the pathways, which will incur cost and time as well, how would you counsel a parent?
Okay, so in the whole thing, the three things that I mentioned, school, university, and industry, I missed out the parents part. And that's a phenomenal thing, particularly at the school level. We are also experiencing the same thing at the university. But at the school level, I think you face more difficulties. So I do agree that, and I keep talking to the counselors and I say, probably our parents need more counseling than students. Because students are aware of lots of things. Parents have moved from a different age of society to a completely different age, and I think we are still not able to understand where the world is moving. So I think that's a challenge, no doubt about that. But we need to look at those examples. So when we sometimes we actually ourselves tell our students that you would do better if you change a major because you're not doing good in this particular major, and the parents said, no, he's going to do well. I know. He, right from the beginning, he wanted to do this. And the style has a different take altogether. And I talked to them individually, right? And then I realized that they're just not on the same page. Absolutely not on the same page. And I give an example that in India, we have this Anu auntie who defines what major you take, right? You can search Anu auntie on Google, you will get a parody. It's actually true. So it's important to talk to parents. We have to engage with them. It's not going to happen in a day. But I think a continuous effort and a collective effort in that direction will yield. Because we have seen that now we are getting queries where, coming to his point, our engineering students are coming to SNU because of this major minor combinations. They're coming to us because of the liberal arts form of education that we give. So we are getting, so I had a student who got BTech admission at IIT BHU. He left that and he joined SNU in computer science. Of course, he was getting metallurgy there and he was getting computer science here. That was also one of the reasons, but then he left IIT BHU and joined SNU because of the kind of things that we do. So it's changing, it's a slow process, it's an evolution, it'll take time, but it'll happen.
There are these two brothers, one majored in international relations and from top league Ivy League colleges. And the US government at that point of time had come out with a legislation about the movement of trucks, and they figured out there would soon be a need for an app for truck drivers that would best work with that kind of legislation. They needed a techie. They had the program in mind. They couldn't code. So they got a techie on board, and they created this app and sold it to the US government that helps the government to somehow monitor the movement of trucks better. So I think giving real-life examples work better than just telling them, okay, these are the career outcomes. There's another individual, I think he had a major in international relations and a minor in computer, and they discovered this vast volume of diaries left behind by, or some sort of documentation left behind by ISIS, And he could tell them that, or he designed a program that said, look for these words in those diaries, and they were then able to preempt a strike. So if you could just come up with these examples, that requires a lot of reading, but that just convinces parents, or tell them, go read this book, or go look up this person.
Thank you for this great answer. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Shoma Dam. I'm the career counselor at Sun City School.
Great.
So in our school, we do it. It's a weekly program which we call as I Discover Me, starts in grade 9. So while we start from industry, talk of careers, bring parents on board. So any profession that we talk of, so the parent would come and not talk of how you can make it there, but what's the kind of life I'm leading? What are the essentials in terms of skill set? What is my day-to-day life? What are my challenges? Now that becomes a point of connection for the children who are listening in terms of that, am I looking there? Is this the kind of life that I want to lead? Because at the end of the day, the schooling and the degrees that we have, the total time we spend on that, probably 14 years, another 7 years, 21 years. Thereafter, working time, 35 years. So my decision of those 35 years has to be based on what do I connect with? Now that's what we do on an ongoing basis, and because we involve parents to come and talk. So it spreads in the parent community as well and amongst the children. That's helping us.
Any other question?
I'll start with good morning to all of you. So I'll start with a comment. First of all, I would like to say a big thank you to your approach, because it has been very supportive. It has been very encouraging to us educators and counselors. Now my question is, from your knowledge and experience, is the rate of dropout from studying in a liberal arts university lower than studying in a traditional university, according to you?
First of all, let me just say that is a really great question. I personally don't have the answer. I don't know if you have some answers. Okay, that's a lot more than I have.
Yeah, so I mean, since I'm a associate dean for academics, I mean, any changes, it goes through me. So I know every individual case of this university, and we are new, so we have been doing almost all multidisciplinary things. We've done everything at this university. So yeah, there were cases, as I said, where the student was not doing well. Now, of course, we told the student that, you know, if you change your major from this to this, and of course, after talking to him, understanding his perspective, understanding his, interest, and also call the parents, we allowed for so there are two reasons why we allow change of major. One is the student is doing well, and he definitely wants to pursue some other major. So, he applies for a change of major, and that happens based on the CGPA. The other one is distress cases. So change of major, that goes through us, basically, by our recommendation. And that has helped the dropout. So there are cases that we have seen, of course, even now we have dropouts who are not able to graduate on time, but this has helped. So, and since, there's another advantage that Shiv Nadar has, all our degrees are 4 years. All. So you have a history or a sociology or a physics or a computer science, everything is 4 years. So the alignment and shifting is slightly easier. Because then, the common courses, you don't have to repeat if you change your major. It gets just transferred to your thing. So there are things which are transferable. So it doesn't extend your graduation. And so that has helped. I think this concept of comprehensive university, which has a lot of majors available, has helped. And I sincerely believe it has a potential to definitely help in the graduation outcome. Yeah.
Great, that's super helpful. So no, I've never seen the retention rates of the non-liberal arts, because and it's funny because being in India has taught me so much, because you leave your own area, because we kind of, Z and I both, I think, take for granted the type of degree that we offer, because that's all we knew as undergraduates. And so it's wonderful to have this comparing and contrasting. And I do think the flexibility is key, because Tinto does a lot of work on retention rates, and your education has to be relevant. And then you have to have that deep sense of belonging. And I think if you're doing something that your mind, body, and spirit isn't aligned with, I think you struggle kind of internally. And even though the students may not know what's happening, my hypothesis would be that the retention rates are higher at institutions that are, and again, not just liberal arts institutions, but offer the liberal arts degree. But no, that's a super good question. Well, I want to thank all of my incredible colleagues, and then thank all of you for your great questions and your input. And so I know that we certainly will be here for a little bit, but I think they'll have the other group coming in probably in about 15 or 20 minutes, so thank you. And if you want the presentation, and I think what I'll do is even add a slide, because there is a link that has some really good background on what Rupa had mentioned, and I'll get your link for information, so maybe add a slide on the background of the liberal arts going back much further, and then share with you.